we are back talking about
forever. We missed you.
We did.
It's been a long time.
Yes, it's been like minutes.
Whole minutes. Entire minutes.
Yeah, I mean, for us, time passes strange, so.
It does. It does. It doesn't flow quite right. No concept of time.
None. I know that if I need to record something with Candy, I need to set the time as like 10 minutes before to get her to be there 10 minutes later. You are exactly on time 10 minutes late.
Yeah, and?
It's funny.
I'm fashionably late. But no, like, I mean, no concept of time as in, like, it just goes by and it seems like 15 minutes and then we look up and it's 3 hours.
It's true. It's weird. Especially like when we get together, like either video wise or in person wise or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that weekend in New York was infinite.
Yeah, that was
lasted
an infinite
like
3 days.
Yeah. That lasted like an entire month. And then all of a sudden it's like.
But then it was only a few minutes also.
Yeah. It was so weird. And do you know in that trip to New York, I spent $10.
I think I spent 25. Because I bought a thing. I don't remember
I bought dinner. Like that chicken Caesar salad in Grand Central was $10.
Right, but I bought something while we were at Grand Central besides food.
You know what? I did spend more than $10 because I bought this.
Yeah, but we were there for 3 days.
We were. And I bought this thinking my kid was going to be absolutely all over it.
Yeah, I remember that. When we were in the store with Paula.
Yeah, we were. We were hanging out with Paula. And we went to go see, because it was St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, and we went to see the bagpipers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Grand Central Bagpipers was amazing.
Amazing, yes.
The acoustics in Grand Central are just amazing for that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I got this. And I'm the one who plays with it. Go figure.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I figured I was going to be the one playing with it either way. So, yeah. So every once in a while, if I need to, like, work through a problem, I take this out and I just, like, make shinies.
I have one of those. This is my, what am I doing
one of those
with
on my
this thing?
desk in my office.
Yeah, this is my ponder thing.
So, mine is, like, way too fast to be ponderous.
Well, flipping it helps me too. So.
But I do have, and I'll show you this, because I rescued like a bunch of stuff from my office the last time I went in, because we're all remote now, for the most part, but I got...
Oh, penguins!
Penguins! Floating around, doing their thing.
I love it. They're swimming.
And I love those things. So yeah, I'm gonna just wreck my desk right now. From that time that I went to Niagara Falls.
Nice.
It's
a little boat.
It is. I think it's the hornblower. No, is it the hornblower? I think it's the hornblower.
Okay. Right on. Yeah, I have fidget toys everywhere.
Yeah, I need to
because I fidget a lot.
I do as well, and I find that having something to focus on helps me focus. So
yes. Something that's not what I'm thinking about.
Right, exactly.
Helps
it's like
me think about it.
You're sneaking up on the problem. Because it's like, oh, you're distracted. Let me just solve myself. And then all of a sudden you're like, aha, I gotcha.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I use it to sneak up on my solutions.
I feel you.
So we were going to talk about Dickens today.
Yes.
And ghost stories.
Yes.
On
Christmas. Mm-hmm.
Christmas ghost stories. Because that was a thing back in the day.
And they told them because?
It was fun.
Yes.
You clearly have the answer. I'm just like, I would tell it just because I always tell ghost stories. I
Oh,
don't.
well, because it used to be like a tradition that at the dark times of the year, you would sit around like a campfire, like back even before Dickens. It was like you'd sit around the campfire and you would remember your dead at this time of year, like pretty much all year long. And you would also do like other work on yourself and things like that, and things around the house that needed done. But while you're doing those things around the house that needed done, say that you're like you're weaving or whatever, the things that you need to do inside in the dark, you just tell stories about those that are departed and whatever. And also it preserved the oral tradition so that the stories of the community continued to move forward to the newer generations.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I know that one of the traditions was to have picnics in graveyards,
Yes,
cemeteries, on the graves of your loved ones.
in Victorian time.
Yes, to basically,
Yes.
well, it was pre-Victorian too, because I know that there was offerings and stuff like that, and then there's other traditions where you put food out for the spirits. So it's
Put a
kind of,
coin on a gravestone.
huh?
Coins on gravestones is a
Yep.
thing. I actually did that in England.
Nice.
Yeah, Simon was like, "What do you?" I was like, "Hey, have you got like a penny or something?" And he was like, "I was like, just give me the penny." And he was like, "What are you doing?" So I explained to him that like if a soldier seat is at another soldier's grave, you traditionally place a coin on top of the gravestone for them, so they have, you know, treasure in the afterlife, basically.
My
Beer money for Valhalla.
my brother put his gloves, like his dress blue gloves, and cover on my grandfather's coffin.
Yeah, I've been um, known to put things. My awards rack,
Mm-hmm.
original from my dress uniform, went in with my father when he was cremated.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of weird because then, years later we went and we had to bury my mom, and we played Meatloaf. And so they lowered the coffin, and, we had Mardi Gras beads all over the thing. We threw Mardi Gras beads, like anything shiny we threw into the hole.
Yeah.
And we played Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell, because it was like
I
one
was
of our
going to ask
favorite
if that
albums.
was the song.
That was,
Yeah.
well, no, the entire album we played.
Nice.
And so we all sat around the grave, like after the coffin got lowered in, we all sat around the grave with our feet dangling in the grave in our dress clothes,
Yeah.
listening to Meatloaf, and just hung out and chatted.
Yeah,
And
we did that with my dad and with my brother-in-law. As he was passing, his favorite song was Freebird.
nice.
And it was weird because, he was in a coma. Speaking of ghosts, he was in a coma, and my sister would start to get sad. Like, we would be playing music for him and stuff, and my sister would start to get sad and like overwhelmed, and Freebird would come on.
Oh,
And
wow.
she'd be like, "Josh, stop it." Like, yeah. So every time I hear that song, I a little bit still, because it's still relatively recent. It's
Yeah,
less than a year ago, so it's still really hard, and she's really having a hard time still.
that sucks.
Yeah.
With
But
my mom, we had, I was standing, because she was in the surgical ICU.
mhm.
And, sepsis, guys, it's not a joke. Go
No, it's
to
not.
the hospital as soon as it starts showing any symptoms, because it will kill within 48 hours usually. So yeah, my mom ended up dying of sepsis ultimately, and she was in surgical ICU. And as I'm standing there, I had a moment, because we couldn't let like the entire family in, so it was like me standing there, and all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see somebody walk in with these beat up black sneakers and these like bright green, like old style scrubs. And I'm like thinking, oh my God, like that's so weird that there's a doctor that dresses like that here. Like, because it was at Hershey, which is typically like they've got some really like bright scrubs and not your typical green scrubs. And something about it was just like, man, that's so familiar, those black sneakers. And then I saw another set of feet walk in, and this one had like dress slacks and regular shoes and like a lab coat. And when I glanced up for like a second, I saw somebody that looked like Elliot Gould, and then they were gone. And I was telling my dad, I'm like, I think these two doctors that mom used to be like really good friends with were hanging out with her. And and I described the sneakers and the scrubs, and he's like, yeah, that's the doctor. And then the one that looked like Elliot Gould was the other one. And I was just like, oh, that's so weird. But yeah, that was wild.
Yeah.
And I mean, she hung on for like a month.
Yeah. I've considered becoming a death doula to help families get through it, because there's such a clinical aspect nowadays. And when we lost my mom and my dad and Josh, we like came together and sat with them and told stories, and like myself and my sister and Josh's best friend and their daughters were all with him at the moment that he passed, and we were all touching him, saying goodbye. And that's important, like having some sort of ritual to say goodbye. And there's not a lot of that.
It's not really goodbye though. It's like, see you later.
Well,
see you in another form.
but not everyone believes like we do. And so the aspect of having someone to help your family through the grief and the idea that they're being birthed into a new state, I think is very helpful. And I really, I still consider doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's, I had to explain this to my son because he was really upset when his great grandmother passed recently. And I told him, I was like, it's not goodbye, it's see you later. I was like, she's still around. I was like, she's just in a different form. I'm like, like the cicadas, they come out of the ground, they're all weird looking and bug looking, and then all of a sudden they got wings and they're flying and singing. I was like, it's kind of like that. It's just you're shedding one thing to become another.
Yeah, the chrysalis is a very good example, because the caterpillar has to no longer exist in order for the butterfly to come out, or the same with the cicadas. Like it's process.
Yeah. And it's a lot of stuff goes through that process. Like, we birth, and birds hatch out of eggs, and I mean, like, everything goes through some sort of transformation. Trees come out of seeds, and so everything's going through some sort of transformation. And I've seen and felt way too much to not believe that we absolutely just transform into something else.
Oh yes, of course. I totally same. But like, on that note, talk to us about Dickens now that I've gone on about death traditions.
Death traditions. No, I was just thinking like Christmas Story, because this won't air. This will air after Christmas. So
we could switch it around.
Yeah, we can.
Just before Christmas.
It's true. We can do our Christmas.
We can do whatever we want.
It's true. I do what I want.
Our show. I schedule them.
It's true. It's true.
So anyway,
I do the post-production. You do all the magic.
Yeah.
And descriptions, links, tags, the magic. So yeah, I mean, that was one of the things for Dickens, was to have the ghost story, and that's why the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future are around.
Right. Well, and Marley.
Yeah, absolutely, Marley.
Marley's ghost is the harbinger of things to come. Yeah,
It's
that's
funny because I just listened to a podcast last night, and the episode was called The Humbug.
Okay.
And all I could think of was Scrooge.
Right.
And it's funny because the humbug, like, does not mean, like, it didn't mean what I thought it meant, I guess. So, like, it just seems like some catchphrase of, like, some cranky old guy in a Dickens novel.
It means nonsense, doesn't it?
It's a hoax.
Okay.
So it's basically like you are tricking somebody on purpose. So the king of the humbug was P.T. Barnum.
Okay.
And his first humbug was a lady who the claim was that she was 160 years old at the time that he bought the act. And because of her, in fact, he became an abolitionist. Yeah, there we go. That one.
What?
Yeah, because of her, he became anti-slavery. And her story was that she was George Washington's nurse. And so she would sit there and tell stories about George Washington as a kid growing up.
Okay.
And it
just
turned
made
out,
up out of whole cloth?
Huh?
Made up out of whole cloth, just out of nothing, or?
Oh, yeah, she just sat there, like, smoking her pipe, talking about George Washington as a kid. And people would come from, like, all over the place to see her. And when she actually died, the autopsy showed that she was only about 80 years old.
Nice.
But, the effect was already there, and P.T. Barnum fought slavery after that, which was pretty cool. And he said that he had to raise money to get her grandkids out of slavery because they were still slaves.
Isn't it amazing how when you're, like, actually exposed to people and talk to them and see them as people,
What?
your whole opinion and view of them changes?
It's almost like if you go outside of your usual area of comfort and travel a little bit and meet other people,
you learn things and get some compassion and see things differently.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with this about this with AJ the other day about how, because he was saying something about terrorists, the bad terrorist guys, and I was like, well, not for nothing, but every side thinks that they're the good guys. In any conflict, everyone thinks that they're the good guys. He was talking about the bad British soldiers. I was like, yeah, but they thought they were doing the right thing, like back in the Revolution, because we were talking about it for school. I was like, but they thought that they were preserving their way of life, and it's oddly similar to things that are, happening today. I said, and honestly, honey, the revolutionaries were insurgents. And he's like, but insurgents are terrorists. I said, that's interesting. I said, what does terrorist mean? He's like, well, they're bad people that kill people. And I was like, well, bad by yours and my standards. And yes, I disagree with them sending women and children, but they believe that what they're doing is right and just, and that they'll be rewarded for martyring themselves. And he's like, oh. Like, you could see the light bulb go off. And I love that moment when you're talking to your kid and you can see
the eureka moment.
Yeah. It's the best. I love talking to anybody and seeing, like, them understand things. It just makes me so happy. But yeah.
my kid, like, when all of this was going on with COVID and the shutdowns and everything, so, like, when they came back, like, now the school has free lunches for everybody.
Yes, I think all the schools do.
That's awesome.
I think that's a Department of Education wide policy.
Good. Because I know that the school locally, I think, was using part of the CARES Act money.
Yeah, because I think
that happened.
Everyone I know, I think their kids are getting free lunches for everyone.
Yeah. So before all of this, um, my son was packing lunch.
Right.
He specifically asked to pack lunch, and then all of a sudden we got this notification that his lunch card balance was low. We're like, why is it low? He's been packing every day. So, we sit him down. We're like, hey, have you literally been buying lunch and eating 2 lunches every day? And he got this like really weird look on his face. And I was like, what's going on? And he's like, and he didn't want to talk about it. And then finally he was like, yeah, I'm buying 2 lunches and I'm eating them. And I was like, are you really? And he always does this thing when he's trying to lie where he like looks away and starts laughing. And I'm just like, come here, what's going on? And it turned out he was buying lunches for his friends. And he was packing stuff that he knew his friends, like he would request stuff that he had never requested before to go into the packed lunch. And it turns out he was like basically feeding his friends that couldn't afford lunch. And I was just like, and I was like, you're not going to get in trouble for that.
Yeah.
I was like, I will never be mad at you for that, ever.
Yeah.
I was like, because you're helping people, but like obviously your friends for whatever reason could not afford lunch. I don't need to know the reasons.
Exactly. And I love that so much because there's a lot of people in the world who would be like, well, they have parents. And
Yeah.
why aren't their parents? Well, because they can't.
Yeah.
Those parents, if those kids are hungry, those parents are hungrier. Trust me on this.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I was just like, yeah, I had free lunch and reduced lunch growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And
So did I.
it was absolutely humiliating to get those red tickets and have to bring them up to
Mm-hmm.
the cashier and show everybody that I couldn't afford lunch.
Yeah, but you know what was worse is the kids that were just above the level where they could get that and they still couldn't afford lunch.
Yeah.
So they had nothing. So there were people I used to split with.
Yep.
Or we'd get together and like everybody sitting at the table would just start trading what they liked and everybody would share. And yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was one kid who was awful. She got in, her dad was like this fantastic human being. And he was the one where I got the, oh, well, those kids have parents. Why can't they take care of their own kids? He actually gave her that speech.
Well, I told my kid he would never get in trouble for helping somebody. That,
yeah. And we live in a society, like we're all just here to walk each other home. Like,
mm-hmm.
Come on, man.
Yeah. And I think that's gotten lost.
Mm-hmm.
That entire aspect of society has gotten lost. It's like, well, I'm just going to take care of myself. I'm not going to take care of anybody else. It's like, dude, you're like, you've got load-bearing political flags and not enough to eat.
Yeah.
Like,
but you know what's interesting? There's a lot of people that are amongst our community, amongst like the woo-woo spiritual community, if you will, that are absolute monsters. But there are a lot of people that have these beautiful intentions and they really like, they will say, yeah, we're here to help each other. And they live it. Like, they don't just say the words, they live the words. And I love seeing that so much because it makes a difference. It makes a big difference in a lot of lives.
Oh, hell yeah.
You know?
I was talking to somebody yesterday about Guy Fieri and how he like catches so much crap about like the way he looks and
Talking
stuff.
to me about him.
Huh?
You're talking to me about him.
It was to you, right?
It was me, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, nutshell version, Guy Fieri catches a lot of crap for the way he looks. Absolutely amazing guy. No, it wasn't just you. It was somebody else too.
Oh, okay. But
yeah,
like
he was like a topic yesterday for some reason.
Yeah, he donates so much money and he does so many things.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it until you were telling me about it.
Yeah. And neither did the other person because they were like, "Oh, look, he's helping out."
He's quiet about it.
Oh, he's very quiet. Very, very quiet about it.
Kind of like how Jimmy Carter like swoops in and like changes people's lives and doesn't say a thing about it.
Builds houses for people.
He's done more than that. There was this one story back when they were saying they had cured homelessness in Utah. there was this woman who was working at one of the homeless shelters, and she got interviewed for this magazine, and she was talking about how she was an addict and she was homeless and she had a baby and she was waiting on social programs, and everybody's like, oh well, why don't you just go apply for welfare? Why don't you go on government housing? It's not that easy. I
Everybody thinks
guarantee you
it's so easy to
they
get
do.
welfare. It's
There's so
not.
much paperwork to do. There's a stack,
Yeah,
and
I've
there
filled it
are
out.
so many things that they check, and then you have to wait for months,
Yeah,
right? So she's waiting for public housing, and by the time she gets it, she had started using again, because she had gotten herself clean, she was working, she was doing all the right things, and she just was in such utter despair. But when this girl was 17, she had been in alcohol rehab with Jimmy Carter's brother's son. So Jimmy Carter's brother caught a lot of hell as being the drunk and just like this, but he would help people with addiction so much. So Jimmy Carter's nephew basically talks to her on Facebook and can tell something's off. He books a flight and tells her he's coming there on business and can they meet up, and goes out there to see what's going on with her.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And it gets better. So the first time they're supposed to meet, she doesn't show up because she's embarrassed. And he goes out and he does his things in the morning and whatever. And he comes back and she's there in the hotel lobby with all of her stuff. And he's like, okay, tell me what's going on. And she told him, and he was like, okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to come home with me to Georgia. We're going to get you clean, and you can stay as long as you want on the peanut ranch, like the ranch that they have back there.
Yeah.
Because, Jimmy Carter gave the ranch to his brother. And this is their family does stuff like this all the time. So this woman went back, she got clean, she stayed with him and got her life together, and he never once asked her for a thing.
That's awesome.
And that's just the entire family's like that. I had no idea until like a few years ago that he was doing this, because Jimmy Carter never makes a big deal about the things that he does.
Nope.
Neither did his brother, and neither does his nephew. They just do what needs to be done.
Yep.
It's amazing. And there's a lot of people out there like that.
We need more people like that.
Yeah, we do. Back to Dickens. Speaking, because that reminded me of Ebenezer Scrooge. He has a lot of stories where that's like kind of the theme. People are in abject poverty and they get lifted out by some strange circumstance or some strange coincidence of birth.
Yeah, by like a rich person.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting, and I wonder if it's because of the times, because so many people were in such poverty that he was writing kind of what everyone hoped for.
Yeah.
Because society the stories tend to be about what we're afraid of or what we aspire to. And you'll notice that a lot of things go coincidentally, like Peter Benchley wrote Jaws, and then the movie came out, and then like there's been all these fears of sharks and fears of the unknown and things like that. And Stephen King talks about the slasher movies in his book Dance Macabre,
Mm-hmm.
which is his nonfiction about the art of writing.
Yep.
And he talks about how slasher movies are really about the fear of teenagers having sex.
It's true.
Yeah.
And doing
running
drugs,
wild and
drinking.
doing drugs and drinking, and yeah. And that's like how The Exorcist, right? Peter Blatty heard about this one case that happened with this boy and wrote about it, and then like all sorts of stuff happened, but I think that's a conversation for another episode.
Absolutely. Cultural shifts due to
yeah, absolutely. And it ties in with the theme of ghosts and demons, so
indeed.
there we go. Yeah.
wrapped up in a nice
Wrapped
bow.
up. Nice and neat. You like how I did that? That was a good segue, right?
It was. You brought it all together.
I know, I'm learning. Look at me. Becoming a broadcast superstar. I'll have the radio host voice like you soon. I just want to be like you, Mom.
It's a riot. I think people hear my voice and expect me to be
taller.
well, yes, there's that. Everybody's always kind of surprised, like when I stand up and I don't stand much further than sitting in the chair.
Yeah. When we stand up and we stay the same size, basically.
Yeah, it's
Because
like,
you thought I was taller also, and I'm just barely taller than you are.
yeah, I thought you were like 5'5", 5'6", and I'm like
just 5'5", just 5'5", and people think I'm like 5'9", 5'10", and I'm like,
yeah, I'm 5 feet.
I just carry myself big.
Well, I think it's my proportions that people think I'm taller because my legs are really long and then my torso is really short and then my arms are really long. So I look like a comic book character.
A hot one.
I am proportioned to be a comic book character. Except, my chest is not proportioned
You're
like a comic book
special. A special comic book character. You're an anime character, baby.
Oh my god.
You're the fan service.
OnlyFans.
That's a big nope.
Yeah,
Nope.
but yeah, I think that's probably it, is when I'm on camera, people just assume, oh, she's tall because she's got these like gangly arms and these crazy legs and then, tiny little torso. But no, the tiny little torso makes me tiny little person.
Well, it's very
if my
funny
torso was in proportion to the rest of me, I'd be like 5'7".
Yeah. It's very funny talking about that because I could never do this without you because I'm so awkward. And like, I'm very comfortable with you, but like, if someone were to meet me, remember when we met in person and I was like, I can't look at you, I can't, hi, and it's either I'm really like awkward and don't have much to say, or I just vomit everything all over you.
Well, that was like,
And
a minute later, you were like, I was like, we have to get to the hotel now.
yeah, I'm either giving you way too much information or you think that I'm mute. So there is no in between. Except for like when I'm comfortable, then I can have a conversation like a normal human being.
I tend to get manic when I'm in a public setting. So I get nervous.
Nuh-uh.
I get nervous, and then it's like this complete defense mechanism where I go on stage, and it's exhausting because like after it's done and I'm away from the people, I'm like,
oh, I remember it scares. Like you were something, and I'm sitting back in the corner just watching everything, and you're like, come here, come here, come here, and I'm like, no.
And then back in the hotel room, I'm like, oh god, just leave me alone.
I'm gonna
die.
Yeah, somehow I ended up with a camera shoved in my face on a podcast like a deer in the headlights. Hi. I will never forget that.
And that was our foray into what would become Two Women Left Unsupervised.
That was the beginning, yeah.
Yeah. That's where it all started, basically.
Yeah. Well, I started doing YouTube when I was doing that one group, and I was doing rituals at the full moon and stuff for people, and then it was just me doing a ritual for my sisters, and that was fine. After a couple times, I was fine with that because it was just...
That was a while ago.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
I still have those videos up. They're private on my channel, but I still have them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's crazy looking back.
I've got like book trailers and mostly book trailers and some animations that I did. My favorite one by far is Good Goths Knit Bad Sweaters.
Yeah.
That
You're gonna have to put that up.
It is up. It's on my YouTube channel.
Can you cross post it?
I think we can put a link in the description.
Let's do that.
It's old.
That's great.
It's so old, and I used the crappiest camera, which at the time was like state of the art.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not great quality. It's very pixelated.
Mm,
Um,
it's fantastic.
it's just so cheese. It's so bad. And it was a sweater that I was knitting at the time, and it's like this furry Muppet sweater from hell, and I love
Yeah,
it.
it's good.
I love
It's
that
really
sweater.
good. Yeah.
I'm afraid to wear that sweater because I'm not sure if I've actually knit it or if I just caught pieces and knotted them together and those knots are going to come apart. It
Nice.
was really hard to knit that sweater.
Mhm.
I feel like I need to knit another one.
I feel like you should knit me one. Yeah, definitely.
It took, I don't know if I can get that yarn anymore. I have like one last batch that's blue for a sweater that I was going to knit for me.
Hmm.
Um, I have to check and see if I have more of it though. Because when the company that was making it went out of business. Well, they didn't go out of business, they just stopped making it. And now they have very short runs on Amazon. But they used to have like an entire website of amazing yarn.
Hmm.
And Knit Picks does not carry this type of yarn, unfortunately.
We're gonna have an episode where you tell us about yarn, just teach us stuff. Or, oh wait, I have an idea. I'll talk to you about it offline. Never mind.
Okay. Cryptic.
It'll be wonderful. You'll see.
Going to be glorious.
It will
And
be
on
glorious.
that note, we'll catch you guys on the flip side.
Goodbye.